No one jumped that time. We'd like to welcome you to Cache County Council on this day, February 13th, one day before Valentine's Day. So, that's just a reminder. I'm taking it as a reminder for me. Appreciate everyone that's here. If you haven't signed in as you've walked in, we appreciate you doing that. We'll go ahead and start by an opening by Council Member Nolan Gunnell.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Two things in my comments. Today in the news, we've seen a law enforcement officer in Utah be injured badly, and we've seen those law enforcement agencies sacrifice their lives lately. There's also the funerals of some military personnel going on this week, the attack in Jordan. I just want to give a shout out to those men and women who provide for our safety and our freedom, and want to recognize them and thank them for all the sacrifices they make, because they really are fighting a uphill battle right now. So I want to give thanks to our law enforcement people and our military men and women. So thank you for that. And I would also like to make my comments, opening comments, in the form of a prayer. Our Father in heaven, we come before thee at this time as our council meeting begins on this day, and we give thanks for our freedom. We give thanks for the Constitution in this land and the benefits we receive from it. May we always uphold it, and we give thanks for those men and women who have sacrificed so much to have it, and we appreciate that. We pray that in this meeting this night we may take our responsibilities and vet out those things so that we can make the right decision. We give thanks for this, and this we ask in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Now, if you'll join me in a pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the amended agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Move and second that we approve the amended agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. How about the approval of the minutes from 1/23/24? I'll entertain a motion.
I have just a couple of things. They were written kind of funny in some places. And I should have printed it out and looked at it, but
Remember that section?
I can't get my computer to load here. Let's see. Like, for example, 10A says, Council discusses, Barbara Tidwell asks how appointments to each committee will be given. You know, it's not a big deal, but I thought it would be maybe better stated, Council discussed and Barbara Tidwell asked. And it has it that in that format all the way through the minutes. But I don't think it invalidates the minutes, but I'll just make a comment that whoever, I don't know if these are being transcribed from the recording or what, but I had to stop and read it, go back and read it a couple of times to figure out what was actually said. So anyway, with that, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Moved and seconded that we approve the minutes as is. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Executives report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Council. We're working on some appointments to present to you, but we just didn't make the print deadline on getting some of the final information for that. particularly for the Career Service Council. So we can expect to see those next meeting. Other than that, I have no other items for tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Items of special interest. Let's go ahead with the, I guess we'll listen to Chris Sands. Is he here tonight? There will be right on the front row. I looked right through you.
Why, yes, he is.
COSAC. Open space, and I appreciate the information that we've received on this and the application and stuff. We appreciate that.
Thank you, council, and appreciate your time this evening, and while Stephen is getting things set up. Thank you. My name's Chris Sands. I am chair of the COSAC, and we're excited to be here at this major milestone in our existence of bringing you the initial documents that we think should guide the process of applications from landowners who are interested in participating in our new county purchase of development rights program. So we've prepared a brief overview of sort of the application process, and I'll just talk through that with your permission, take a few minutes, highlight a few things, and then leave it open to questions if that sounds okay, Mr. Chair. Okay. Okay, great. Thank you. All right, so a quick overview of the process, and just want to acknowledge there's a number of our COSAC members here in the audience to help back me up and cover for me if I can't answer a question. As this graphic shows, we envision the application process to be kind of a two-stage process, a first round application and a second round. These highlight the various factors that we think should be adopted as part of this process. So beginning with a pre-application, an opportunity for the landowner or the applicant to come meet with staff, meet with the COSAC, talk about their project, get some initial feedback, that sort of thing. So we want to make that optional and available for landowners if they'd like to participate. We can give them some guidance in addition to the application and other aspects of the process that you can see today. So the first round, we have a round one application. It comes in, it'll generate a staff report is the idea. We review and rank the applications. We then make recommendations to the council for review. You come back and give conditions of approval or denial or need more information, that sort of determination. Then in between that and the next round, this gives the applicant an opportunity to update their application with a number of important pieces of information that we'd like to see. And then that begins the second round where the application is updated, additional information is provided, and we go through a similar review process. And then at the end of the second round is where we think that ultimately there'll be a decision to recommend approval for a project or ultimately denial for a project. So that's a quick overview of the process. The next couple of slides that were provided in your presentation kind of give more description to each of those steps in the process. I won't bother to go into a lot of detail, but obviously you can refer back to this information as we go through this discussion. First round highlighted here, and then the second round highlighted here. And maybe, what would you like to do at this point? We can bring up some of the applications, or we can just jump to questions you may have on anything I've presented or that you've been provided. What would be most helpful?
The application.
Okay,
for the
great.
trail as well as the,
bet.
it's been something they've put considerable work into as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's two aspects to the the whole program. One is for open space funding, and the other is for trail easement acquisition or trail development. And so we have separate applications for those two different kinds of projects. For the open space funding application, we're envisioning that these are individual willing landowners in the county who would like to preserve their property in perpetuity would make application for open space funding. We have some very basic information in there that we're looking for in terms of the first few questions are, is the property in Cache County? Yes or no? And if the first three questions here, if there's an answer no to any of these, then the project's not eligible. But then we're looking for specific property information, parcel numbers, those kinds of things, acreages, detailed applicant information, name, phone number, address, email, those kinds of things. Are they represented by land conservation organization or a land trust, for example, that sort of thing. And then we get into a section of the application where we're looking for additional information, tell us more about the uses of the property, the condition of the property, any concerns there. What sort of benefits should we expect to see if this project is recommended for approval, those kinds of things. So we're looking for specific aspects there that are highlighted that really tie into the original bond language. So we're talking about wildlife habitat, we're talking about farmland, we're talking about waterways, public access, trails, those kinds of things. Okay. The additional documentation that we're showing here in the application is really just a teaser for the second round. It says if your application is accepted, we're going to need the following information. So ultimately, a real estate appraisal, understanding of the legal, are there any easements or rights of way on the property, water rights, those kinds of things. That we'd like to know more about in a round 2 application. So that's your basic application for the open space funding. And then similarly, the trails application. Do you have questions on that?
On
Go ahead.
that one,
Yes, sir.
I noticed on your, the scoring,
Yes.
you do have a scoring section for allows public access.
Yes.
And then it says, please see the COSAC trail application for trail-only projects.
Right.
So
We're trying to separate for projects that are just to build a trail.
and
That
then
is-
others, I guess I'm saying is, does it count against some of these people that would love to see open space if they don't allow public access?
I don't,
Are they scored lower?
that's a good question. They wouldn't receive points for allowing public access. So
Would be then scored lower?
I guess if you're comparing
Comparing
two,
apples to apples on
Yeah.
everything, okay.
yeah,
Because that's kind of an issue with a lot of people that own open spaces.
yes.
They would love to have the open space, but still fighting the public access because how it impedes maybe the continual use of what they perceive open space to be.
Sure, sure. There are definitely going to be landowners that are not going to be interested in that aspect. There are also, plenty of examples in the valley of landowners that currently allow public access, whether it's for fishing or hunting or those kinds of things. So we're expecting there will be some property owners that would be interested in that, but not everyone, certainly.
I mean, I can see if there was somebody who wanted to preserve their farmland as farmland and not have it developed, they wouldn't want public access to it.
Right.
Well, and that's where I've had 2 people come to me, talk about their land. And so I'm hoping, I mean, it talked about valley gateways
Yes,
or vistas.
yes.
So if somebody's talking about farmland and not trails or not open, that those vistas or gateways receive credit as much as trailways would because it's open space.
Yeah.
I guess the other question, and I didn't see this, is once they enter into open space and farming, which two people have contacted me with, what's the duration or the perpetuity on that? Have we defined that?
For an easement?
Land to go into open space,
Yeah, it's in perpetuity.
that's what I thought, so.
It would be in
Just the shy of eternity, right?
Correct, correct. These are really good questions, so appreciate that.
What's, for instance, a farmer puts it into open space,
Yes.
he continues to farm it, but as we all know, the valley grows. Does this offer protection for down the road if somebody says, we need this for expansion or for roads or for utilities? What protection does that farmer have that I've segmented this and I want to preserve it? Does that make sense?
Yes, and you know, I'm certainly not an expert in conservation easements, but they are in perpetuity. They're going to prevent certain future types of.
So he really
takings
does
of
lock
those-
out anything
Yeah,
coming into there?
It really does.
Okay,
It
that's helpful.
There's also a zoning standard within state law that the county can assign that provides additional protections against any type of development happening on that property, and even provides protection against eminent domain on that property as well. So a future government or government agency can't just go in and say, well, I need property for a roadway or utility line, so I'm going to go in and condemn. So that's another option that we can look at, but that goes through a separate process, but these properties would likely qualify for that as well.
Okay.
Bear River Land Trust, when they do these, if they were doing that.
Come to the mic, please, thanks.
Bear River Land, Eric Elison, Bear River Land Trust, when they do these particular easements, if they're the one that brings the landowner forward, they buy a insurance policy. So if that ever is challenged, they have an insurance policy that pays the legal work to defend the conservation easement.
Yeah. Okay. All right, council, along with the application as was asked about, and then as Stephen is showing here, is kind of the score sheet that we compiled. We literally took each of the 6 components that was in the bond language and gave it a section and allocated a proportional amount of scoring to each of those 6 categories. And then ultimately at the end added a section for a score of the last 10% that might identify distinguishing factors about a particular project, its uniqueness, or other factors that maybe aren't considered in the previous 6 factors, such as historic significance, for example, that sort of thing. So you can follow through the score sheet. The idea here is that for each section, there's a number of metrics within that section that we would consider or look at to help us identify what sort of score should be given. So the idea here is that as an application comes in, each of the COSAC members would take their score sheet. Ultimately, we would, as it's outlined in the process graphic, we would do a site visit. We would review the application. Staff would make sure the application is complete, generate a staff report. We would go look at the property and the opportunity, meet with the applicants, that sort of thing, and then come back and go through a score sheet. And the idea is we would compile those scores from the different COSAC members to ultimately end up at a final score for each project as a way to try and prioritize which projects we think might be more important to consider for funding, and bring that to you, to the council for final decision.
So each of the board members then, their score is arbitrary to their own mind.
That's true. That's true. The idea here is that each of those factors, sub-factors within, so here it maintains waterways. So does the project include floodplain, wetlands, waterways, water bodies, springs? You know, as many of those things that are on a project, that would show up in the staff report, and then individual committee members can weigh the importance of those factors cumulatively, but suffice it to say, the idea would be that the more of these items are part of the project, probably the higher the score would be. Okay, and so let me jump over to the trail applications. Very similar process and application. We are requesting very similar information, but in this case, for the trails funding application, we're envisioning that a local government would bring the project to us, because these are going to be projects that are likely led by one of the cities or the county, and the idea here is to secure an easement for future trail projects that may cross multiple properties, that sort of thing. So this funding wouldn't be to fund the construction or development of the trail. It would simply be used to secure the corridor for a trail, is the idea.
So would they would send their applications in on behalf of a strip of landowners, or a combination? It may, like you mentioned, it may take 12 people,
Exactly.
a dozen, 20 even,
Yes.
you know, that the city, they work with them and trying to get something together, so
Yes.
that you don't have to have 20-plus applications. And
Absolutely.
patchwork it together. That's
exactly
I think that's smart. That's good sense there.
Yeah.
I was worried about that. I thought we'd be
Yes, ma'am.
hobnobbing and jumping around, but that's good.
Where it says, please attach landowner acknowledgement, is that some kind of legal form, or do we have, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, so we have an acknowledgement form. Essentially, we wanted to ensure that if a local government is submitting an application, that there is consent from the property owner.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah. Great question.
One other
Yes, sir.
question. What kind of trails are we looking at? I mean, you could be anything from a hiking trail to
Yes.
a mountain biking trail, to an ATV trail, to a Jeep trail. Do all of these
Yes.
fit under this category?
I don't think we've excluded anything. And I think these could be any type of surface, paved or unpaved, for example.
Can the landowner put restrictions on the type of trail that he is asking to go through his property?
I would think so. That would
Yeah.
be part of their, maybe consent to the
Right.
project would be that this can never be paved.
But
or
those would
something
all be
like
worked out with
But-
the cities.
Yeah,
Yeah, this-
exactly.
None of these funds would go toward actual trail construction.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And oftentimes, if we want to make it a condition as part of the approval and part of the easement, we could apply restrictions within that easement to say like, this will only be allowed for foot traffic, or, you know, no motorized vehicles will be allowed on this type of trail. Or, you know, so we have some options, but I would anticipate that the municipality or government making the application would have a recommendation on what that would be used for. For instance, like somebody wanted to do the Bonneville Shoreline Trail, there are already restrictions within state code for what that could be to meet the criteria for that trail system. And so our restrictions could be that it would follow the state criteria for that trail system.
Good. Okay, so again, similar to the open space, we're looking for some basic property information, property owner information, applicant information. Scroll down. We've put together like an example table here, so anticipating that many of these projects, like you were mentioning, Mr. Chairman, and multiple landowners, give us a little bit of idea of, you know, how many landowners, how much area we're talking about, easement purchase price, those kinds of things. Some additional information here. So what type of uses are expected? Is this part of the existing county or city trail master plans? Are all of these properties part of this application? In other words, is this a phase of a bigger project or that kind of example? Do the properties contribute to the connection of communities? And then some questions about, safety and opportunities for multiple use, construction funding. These projects would likely come to us in a more refined condition and well thought out. And so we're expecting that the municipalities will have information on funding and for the construction and a time frame for the project. And they can let us know about that. So those are some of the questions in this section. And then similar to the open space application, we also have a score sheet for the trail. Very similar, but a little more succinct. Some of the components that we've listed here to be scored. Are they part of a master plan? Does it provide connectivity? Support active transportation? What are the populations that are benefiting from this project? So on and so forth. So you can see the various components there that we have as part of the scoring for that application. So I think that's everything in a nutshell, and sorry to have gone through it so fast. There's a lot of information there. Interested in answering any other questions. Yeah, Nolan.
I'm going to go back to the open space, and Eric mentioned Bear River Lands Trust. So obviously, the farmer who wants to do this, it's going to be important that he kind of partners with some group before that.
Yeah.
Is there a listing of some group? I mean, we got Bear River Lands Trust, we've got NRCS. I mean, anything else out there that we can help guide the farmer to partner with that?
There are a lot of opportunities. Lee Rand,
That part, he gets told when he comes and talks to you guys on COSAC, is that
I
part of
think
that?
we can make them aware. A lot of projects are going to come in already with that knowledge, and they're looking to the county to sort of put that cherry on the top kind of
Okay.
funding for a project. I think we're likely to see some mature projects come in for application, meaning that they're further along in the process than others starting from scratch. And so for those that are really starting from scratch, then I think we have a lot of resources that we'll be able to point them to, whether it's land trusts, other organizations, certainly the plethora of funding opportunities that there are out there with the different federal agencies that we're aware of, as well as state agencies. So,
That would be helpful, so thank you.
absolutely. Because ultimately, we want the county's dollars to be a portion of a
Right.
funding for an overall project so that we can
Well,
really
that bond money,
stretch those dollars,
right.
make the most of those dollars that folks are contributing.
Chris, on the trails application, I didn't see anywhere where an appraisal is required for the value of the land being dedicated to a trail.
Good point. We do ask what is the value of the easement being requested. So there's a presumption there that work has been done ahead of this. So that's maybe something we can think about if we need to, similar to the open space application, also ask for an appraisal that backs up the easement purchase price, for example. So great point.
And that should almost, when the approval or the entity that's filing it, they maybe have that accompanied with their application.
Absolutely, and I think it's certainly something that we would add as a condition if it wasn't, obvious in the application.
And I guess most of those cities and those organizations would probably want to know that as they're coming into it also. because-
Absolutely.
Okay. Because they probably even have maybe some financial skin in the game themselves.
Yes,
So,
yes, definitely.
Okay.
They're going to be responsible for construction, they're going to be responsible for maintenance going forward, so we're really just helping them with that initial step. So great point, I think we can make that more explicit.
Other questions?
I have one.
No, you haven't. This is your fourth one.
One more.
Okay. You're doing good, though. We appreciate it.
I look at an appraisal as full and maximum use, but if I'm a farmer trying to keep it as open space, that appraisal is going to be beating against me for wanting to keep it as open space. Does that make sense? Because they're going to appraise it for houses or development.
Correct.
That's right.
And so that, to me, I'm trying to understand how that really comes into there because I'd almost say if the value of the land and the water rights and what it grows becomes more important than the appraisal part does.
Well, that's actually part of the appraisal.
Definitely.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's all
the
part of it.
base.
Yeah, Mr. Appraiser over here, you bet.
Want to come up, Jack?
It would not be appraised at residential development value. It would be appraised as ag land.
Okay.
And, you know, because that's its current use, and that's actually the proposed use of the remainder after the easement is taken for the trail. The remainder is still going to be agriculture. So you don't want to appraise it as residential development or commercial development, which could happen too along our highways.
Right.
Brett has a comment as well.
Jack and I share professions. In a past life, I've done a lot of these appraisals. And to answer that, it depends on what the current zoning is, the current as-is value. Does it have, I mean, does the ag land have potential to be developed now? If it's out in the county and has limited potential, then it's valued that way. And then the after, so that's the before and the after, that difference becomes the value of that easement, if that makes sense.
With you. I understood that the benefit to the landowner was that we were going to be paying them for their development rights.
That's right.
So the appraisal would have to be developed land, right?
Yeah.
Am I not understanding what you just explained?
Yeah. Yeah. I think
Probably.
you're right. Yes. We're paying for the difference between the base value and the development potential. And that value, a portion of that value could be a donation from the landowner, so that we're not paying for 100% of that difference, for example. So it just depends on the individual project and the landowner, what their motivation is. And some folks will be looking for some tax benefit out of it, and so a donation for a portion of that might be something they're interested in. What other questions can I answer, I should say? Yes?
Last question. When do you anticipate being able to open this up for applications?
Well, we're hoping as soon as possible. I think tonight we've brought the information that we've compiled for you. We would be happy to update these with your input, but as soon as you're willing to approve the application and the process that we've outlined, we would like to get it open for applications. We don't have answers to every single question about what's going to come through the doors in terms of an application. We see these as living, breathing documents that will work with you to stay relevant, and we're going to want to be flexible and be in a position to make adjustments to these going forward as we see what comes through the door and what kind of questions need to be answered.
So with that, I don't think we could actually accept this just by a vote. I don't think it has to be by ordinance, would it? Resolution? Taylor?
You need a motion?
We wouldn't have to have by resolution or ordinance to accept this, would we?
You can, I mean, you'd have to vote, I think you'd have to vote on it.
Yeah, but we wouldn't have to have a written, okay. I didn't think so either, so. Other questions, anyone?
Are we going to change, like you said, the, with the trails, having the appraisal on there?
One thing
Okay.
that we can do is, under the open space, we have this, note right here at the end. We could just include this note as supporting documents on the application, on the trails application here at the end, and I think that would cover what we're wanting
Okay.
to do.
It's a
I
good
mean-
suggestion.
I think they've done well.
I think so too. I'll entertain a motion or
So moved to, second?
It's been moved and seconded that we approve this application with the amended, with changes, the few changes which have been stated. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Great.
It's unanimous, and we appreciate it. It's been a great process, though.
Yeah.
Learned a lot, and
just getting
it's
started.
probably, the kickoff is still gonna be, because everyone's got to get their other ducks in a row and start working around, but just let it evolve.
Yeah.
Let it evolve.
Yeah, the real work starts now. So thank you.
Well,
Terrific.
thank you.
Appreciate it very much.
Thanks.
And all the work that you guys have done.
We appreciate your expertise being part of this, and Jack and everybody else involved. Thank you very much.
Okay, I believe we got, is it Blair? Yeah, Blair Stringham from the Utah Division of Wildlife Resources. I wish he would come up here every week and present us with something. But I don't think he quite will. But go ahead and we'll turn the time over to you for the PILT funds.
Okay, thank you, Council, and good evening. So my name is Blair Stringham. I'm the Northern Region Supervisor for the Utah Division of Wildlife Resources. Me and my staff oversee everything that happens with wildlife here in Cache Valley. So I'm relatively new to this position. Just wanted to introduce myself and offer the invitation to please reach out if you ever have anything wildlife related. We'd be happy to help the county in that regard. Tonight I'll be presenting the PILT payment from the Division of Wildlife Resources. This is a payment in lieu of taxes for the lands the division holds in the county. We have approximately 24,000 acres here. And so this payment is $9,160.58. It's largely comes from the money from license and permits holders, from hunters and anglers. And so much of these properties are managed specifically for wildlife, for anglers and hunting opportunities, as well as just recreating and wildlife viewing opportunities.
That number again, I'm sorry.
It's $9,160.58.
For how many acres?
So we have roughly 24,000 acres here in the county. We have Hardware Ranch down in the south end of the county. It's about 14,000. We have our Cinnamon Creek WMA, which is relatively new. We have a Richmond WMA, our Cache shooting grounds out to the west, and then a couple other accesses for sportsmen for hunting and fishing opportunities.
Okay, other questions? Well, thank you very much. See you next week too with another one?
Sure. I think I appreciate it. Who would you like me to leave this check with?
Probably the clerk, right?
Yeah, I would imagine come to the clerks there.
Great, thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. See why I like to invite him?
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and we'll go to, it's a little bit after 5:30, but let's have the public hearing on Resolution 2024-01, opening of the budget. Who is going to speak on that?
38 cents an acre.
Yeah. It's a deal.
All right, the first budget amendment being requested is from the Finance Department. We are requesting some personnel changes to properly classify positions and fully staff our office. We've had some people, one person quit, another person that left the department, a retirement date that has been moved up, and so this eliminates the accounting clerk position and would add an AP specialist, a payroll coordinator, and an accountant one in Betty and the accountant clerk's place.
Are we increasing the number of employees before they left, or are we staying the same?
Before who left?
Well, you said you've had some that have recently left.
So we're adding, it is an addition. Financially, as some higher paid people have left, we're looking to add a little bit more in the head count. Betty does the work of 2 or 3 people, and so to be able to replace her and replace her quickly, we're going to need an extra person.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead then.
Okay, the second piece is for an office remodel. So with the addition of these staffing members and then the addition of an auditor come January, we are looking at remodeling to make space for everybody. So this estimate includes a contractor to do some of the work for an additional office, and then electrical wiring, and then some supplies for new desks and the things we need to supply those cubes.
So all that can be done with $12,000?
That is what I've been told. And I've been told that's a comfortable number. A lot of it can be done by the facilities people, the
Now,
maintenance people.
you're asking to do this, but is it being done right now?
So what's being done right now is just cube expansion, so there's no cost to what is happening right now. So one of the people who quit had complaints that their workspace was inappropriate, uncomfortable, and so we're just making better space for the positions we do have, and then hoping that we can add to those.
And then the 12,000 is to then up and above all that, what's going on right now. This is going to be some new construction.
Correct.
Okay.
So back to the chair's question on the number, if this is increasing, there's been shuffling between the finance and the treasurer, is that correct? So that's taking into account, wasn't somebody from the finance moved to the treasurer side?
Correct,
And they
but
took their responsibility with them, or did that responsibility stay in the finance?
they took some, from what I understand. My understanding is they took probably about a half of an FTE, and we kept the rest.
Okay.
Okay, and number 3?
And number 3 is a budget request to cover the consulting services from Phil. So he's going to get us through our year-end audit and some of the special things that only happen once a month. His budget was wiped out at the end of the year.
Do you think that'll cover what you need from him?
He gave me that estimate, so I think it's should be pretty good.
Okay.
All right, the executive section, there are a number of lines for reducing the budget, removing overtime, removing seasonal employees, reducing audit services, reducing the training and education, travel, subscriptions and memberships, slight change to increase office supplies, reduce communications, and reduce miscellaneous services from their budget.
Okay, sheriffs?
Okay, on the sheriff's budget, there were a couple of part-time positions that were included in the budgeting process that they no longer need. So there are a couple different lines, depending on the area, to reduce those part-time employees, and then some corrections they would like to use some of the funds that they're saving there to pay for some contract cleaning services, as well as there's a proposal to increase pager pay from $1.75 an hour to $3 an hour to be in line with Logan City. And so that is being requested here as well.
I think, was that pager pay, was that mandatory too? Was it,
Didn't we pass ordinance on that?
was that kind of that $1.75 to $3? Wasn't that state kind of?
Yes, no, that started a long time ago, and way back when that started with investigations, I think, we just compared what was doing locally. It was like
Okay.
$1.75, so locally with the other services, it's about $3 an hour.
I thought we talked about that another time, that it was, like it was automatically pushed to $3, so.
I think we were looking at it because we were well lower than everybody else, so that was the number that is local to other agencies.
Wasn't that Terrell's group that we were talking on that?
I can't remember.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Thank you.
Okay.
Doing good. Keep
Excuse
going.
me. For the fairgrounds, we received a check for an incentive that they received for a lighting upgrade. So this is just the adjustment to account for that revenue and then the expenditure of the improvement. For fire, they also received a donation from the Guild Foundation, and so this is accounting for the recording of that donation. And then their Lucas device is higher than they budgeted for, and their Zoll monitor was higher than they budgeted for, so they're requesting increases for that. And then they also have the same pager pay increase situation. Okay, for the clerk's office, David is proposing a number of changes to their staffing. He addressed this earlier in the workshop regarding adding some part-time positions and shifting some positions between elections and clerks. So both of these next two sections cover those payroll changes. And then in the election section, there's also an increased cost for various services, mailings, notices, vendor site support, and trainings. And those are all of the amendments. The tax administration is a calculation.
Okay, we'll open up for public hearing. Anyone that would like to speak on this? One at a time, rush up to the... Yeah. Come on up here, Sheriff.
Chad Jensen with Cache County. Just a question on the, because I got asked today, so the POs that were open in 2023, they're coming in March. That was my only question. They carry over POs.
Okay. Anyone else that would like to come up and speak in behalf or whatever they would like to say about the budget? I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Moved and seconded, we close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. Now it's open for questions from the
I
council.
was trying to add this up in my head and couldn't add it quickly enough, but thank you, Sheriff. I think your addition to the fund balances almost offsets the request from the other departments for fund balances. So I think we may be very near to a wash. Did you look at that at all, Maggie?
I have not, I had it on a different piece of paper in my office, but it was fairly close. I don't have the exact number. I can grab a calculator.
Thank you.
Other comments, questions?
Did you want to bring up your spreadsheet as far as travel in the executive's office?
If you want me to.
You talked
It's
to
up to
me
you.
about it on the phone.
This is,
The main one that I need to make an amendment to the budget opening is in the communications section of the executive's budget. The amount that's there said it lowers it by $2,400. That needs to be changed to $1,850 to account for the fact that they have 3 employees that receive the $85 a month and the 4th one that receives $35. And when I first came up with that number, I didn't realize that there was another exempt employee in the office. So if we could, I would make that amendment that we could change that amount to it'd reduce that budget by $1,850 rather than $2,400.
You're talking about line 240,
Item 11.
item 11?
Item 11.
Oh, okay, thank you.
And I'll just say we went through some of these numbers as an appropriations committee with the executive and with Dirk, and made the recommendations that we made. We rounded up some of them, and then we received a request to increase some of those amounts from Dirk and from the executive. And I don't know if you guys want to discuss those one at a time, if you want to look at those.
I could probably save some time on that too, if you want me to say anything about it right now.
Let me see what everyone else wants to, what do you guys think?
questions about that? or
I'm in charge of
descriptions?
this. It
Is
just
there
need-
something you need to,
Yeah, you can
to say more than what was said, or?
You bet. Basically, we really appreciate the opportunity we've had to work with council members and Micah on going through the numbers, discussing potential and proposed further reductions. I'd say on this executive ask, I was just going to save going through each and every one because I would say about the only thing that I would come pleading for is in the travel line, just that the amounts that were come up with the alternate proposal, going from 9,000 to 6, it's just going to be, that's a big cut. And so we had a loan for fuel, just for, and keep in mind it's for the whole office. So the only thing I was asking is on that number to consider going up to the 7,800, and we will always, you know, if we needed more, we'd come, and that kind of thing. I do also want to say sincerely that I thought it was really cool that I was able to make a plea that we do need training, and you guys included me being able to go to UCMA, and I just really appreciated that thought. So thank you. But that fuel line does cover all of the office and us. For the rest of the office, most of that's in the county and going to different meetings and things. But that would be the only request that I would make tonight, is to go up to the 7,800 or somewhere in between. Anything additional to the 6 would be great, but honestly, that's the only request we have tonight other than what's proposed here. So you see the 1,000 on the side. No, we're fine with 750. We can live within that. The 24 to 2,500. I mean, it's a difference of $100. So yeah, we're fine with the 2,400. So that's the only thing I wanted to share tonight. And we also appreciate you going back and seeing Janine as exempt. Sandy and I talked this morning about our differences of opinion about that cell phone policy, and it was great discussion. So, and we can work through those things as we go forward. In addition, just generally, we really are. Dang it, Councilman Dave, I'm afraid you're going to start making fun of me using this word too much, because it is my humble opinion. But I really am excited. I really am excited because this kind of effort is great. And we've talked in that Appropriations Committee and other meetings about looking at everyone's budgets more carefully. And so we're excited to do that on the executive side and bring you more specific budgets that are just really speak to the actual needs of each department this year. So we're going to try to start that process on our side even earlier than we normally do. So, but back to you. Thanks for letting me say something.
Okay, thank you. Is there any further discussion? We'll be bringing that up here shortly. No other comments? Okay.
I have a couple questions on, what's this City Managers Association? What does that include?
I can speak to that, Barbara.
Thank you.
It's a little different. I'm not entirely comfortable that it comes through the county, but there are 16 municipalities within the county that all get together and have lunch and talk about things once a month. They each pay $200 a year. So that's $3,200. There's $3,200 in revenue, and it sits in that account. And then when they go to lunch, one person pays for everybody else's lunch. Last year they only spent $1,900 out of it.
Yeah.
So it's a revenue neutral.
It is.
Account.
If the money comes in.
Yeah. We'll make sure that it does. I think that's easy enough to track. So that's what that is. It's just the money comes in and then they go out to lunch and pay for it and it goes out.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a wash.
I remember going in place of Craig a few times.
No, that's a different one.
Is it a different
This is
one?
Mayor's.
This is mayor's.
Yeah,
This is just.
This wasn't the
I went in
Mayor's.
place of Craig.
This is managers.
Yeah.
Were they asking about city managers?
Oh, yeah, the City Managers Association, not the mayor's.
This is the city managers.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, the city manager. Okay. Other questions?
Yeah, I do. For travel. What is, you mentioned that it's for training and different things like that. Is that include travel to NACO or any place like that?
We cut NACO out of all of these. My memory is that it really cuts it down to UAC, some of the different UAC. And by the way, the UCMA one that I was asking to go to. They have 2 a year, but I asked to just go to one, and I asked to go to the one they usually hold up north, so that I wouldn't have to have lodging,
Okay.
so.
Okay, we'll come back to that. Let's go ahead and then move on to the approval of the Jones-Simpkins and External Audit 2023 County Financial. Micah?
This should be item 6C in your packet. This is just the engagement letter from Jones Simpkins to engage with the county to conduct the 2023 external audit of the county's financial statements. Jones Simpkins has been providing this service for Cache County for a number of years now, and last week, I think, or maybe, yeah, last week, the audit committee approved this engagement letter, and now it's just before the full body of the council. If you go to page 9 of the letter, you will see their quote for the cost, if I can find it, up near the top there, just under $50,000. That's slightly more than it was last year.
But not much.
Not much. So I think they expect to have this ready by is it June, end of June.
Start in
Well,
April.
before we sign this, I don't know if you noticed on page 8, we expect to begin our audit in April of 2024 and issue our report no later than June 30th, 2023.
I believe their plan was to go back in time.
Good catch, Carl.
No,
That's quick.
Did it yesterday.
Back to the future.
so we'll, if it's the council's wish to approve it, we'll just need a motion about.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to either accept or the audit committee's recommendation or not.
I'm on the audit committee, so I won't make
Yeah,
it.
I won't.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded that we accept the audit committee's recommendation. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, let's move on to report on the Children's Justice Center. Scott?
Scott Bodley, Director of the Cache County Children's Justice Center. Councilman Erickson and members of the County Council, it's good to be with you tonight. With 2023, 6 weeks in our rearview mirror, I thought it would be a good time to talk a little bit about what the CJC experienced last year, and then a little discussion about moving forward into 2024. So for calendar year 2023, we had 231 on-site forensic interviews, 97 medical exams, 149 of those cases were alleged sexual abuse, 95 cases were alleged physical abuse. There were also some cases of environmental or emotional abuse, drug endangered children, things of that nature. But the majority of what we had was physical and sexual abuse. Moving forward into the coming year, just give a little bit of a building update. I've been working with Matt Phillips and with Jesse Mott on building a master plan for the CJC. I believe we've talked about that in the past. I'm looking at this as a multi-year plan for the projects that need to be done to improve ADA access, second floor access, general parking, and client-specific parking for interviews and medical appointments. We've been working on that, and I received the latest update just this morning. So that's a work in progress. This morning I met with Landmark Construction to begin the process of removing a glass wall between the main hallway kitchen area and the medical wing and replacing it with an insulated sheetrock wall. We had about 3 months ago, we had an MDT staffing. MDT stands for Multidisciplinary Team. Public agencies of prosecution, law enforcement, DCFS. that come in and staff child abuse cases that come through the center. And as we're finishing that meeting up, we had a medical come in, and it became very clear that a glass wall is just not going to be able to provide enough separation between what they're doing on that side and what we were doing on our side. So everybody was good. When I pointed out that we had a medical exam in the building, they were good to move into another area and keep things down. But it was obvious that we've got to make a change in that respect. And then also, yesterday at a statewide directors meeting, I learned of new legislation that identifies CJC interviewers, advocates as first responders. And so the CJC must provide mental health services to them the same we would do for law enforcement or other first responders. Funding for that may come through the AG's office, Attorney General's office contract. We don't know yet. It's a relatively new development. And I will make sure that you're updated on that, but still learning more about that, and also how we're going to best implement that for our CJC staff. So just a brief, quick report on a little bit of what's going on at the CJC. That concludes what I had prepared for presentation, but I'm open to any questions that you may have.
Funding for these changes, what is
Still to be
that
determined. That may come through the Attorney General's office as part of their contract. The director at the AG's office was looking at that, but as the legislative session is still ongoing, and this was a relatively new development, kind of everybody's in the spot where like, okay, it's a good idea, but now we got to figure out how to implement it and how to pay for it. So.
I get the comment, and I didn't know that you guys got, which is great, that you got listed as first responders, but DPS has, I think got $5 million from the legislature to fund mental health services.
It was seed money, was it not?
I think it's ongoing. It was $5 million up front, and then they funded like $1 million a year. But it's a grant through DPS. And if you're listed as public safety, then you guys could maybe have access to that.
Yeah.
DPS money.
And they did talk about that. There's some funding that's going to be available. Thank you for reminding me of that. There is some funding that's going to be available. My understanding is that it was seed money to start some projects, but not necessarily ongoing. So I'm going to have to look at exactly how that works. Thankfully, we have a small staff. Well, thankfully sometimes, depending on how busy we are. But that, I think, in and of itself is going to help keep some of the costs down. We'll have to see how that works.
What about the construction projects that you talked about? Are those funded? Are they? They're
funded. I put that in our original budgeting, $100,000 for building improvements. In fact, we originally had it at 200,000, but with some of the budget conversations and shortfalls, I'm like, okay, we can cut that in half. And then if I end up needing more, I can come back at a budget opening and we can address that as we need to. I want to be careful about how I do construction. I have really enjoyed this position. I enjoy coming to work every day. I enjoy doing this job. The one thing that has stressed me is when we've had construction projects that impact our ability to stay open. That gets right under my skin. So I want to be very careful about how we approach construction projects so that it minimizes the impact in our ability to do what we're supposed to do. So that's why I'm looking at this as kind of a multi-year thing. And yeah, it can be, do we just grind it out all in 1 year and be done with it, or do we spread it out? I'm not sure that I know the right answer to that yet, but my gut tells me let's just pick at it a little bit, and one, for budgetary reasons, and two, just for the impact on the center. So,
okay.
Any other questions?
So if counseling's got to be provided for your workers and that as that goes on, is there a mandatory counseling after each incident, or is it as the worker asks for it? How do you determine when that counseling goes and how often?
Don't know the answers to all of that yet, but in that conversation with the other directors statewide, I was able to glean a little bit of what other centers are already doing. So for example, one of the centers along the Wasatch Front that has a big staff and has a lot of cases coming in, the director there mandates already, has done for years, that they do an evaluation. His forensic interviewers do an evaluation twice a year, that his advocates do an evaluation once a year, and that the interviewers are also doing therapy on a monthly basis. So
I can only imagine this weighs heavily on your workers.
it can. It can. That conversation's going to happen tomorrow because that's when Christine's in. She's our part-time interviewer, and I want to loop her into the conversation about what do they want to see? What are they comfortable with? The one part of this that they didn't like was from that example, it's an online assessment. And that wasn't received well. I'm not saying that that's not a great answer for the center that uses it that way. It just didn't feel right to our staff. So I want to have them have an opportunity to say, if we're going to do this, and we are, what is it going to look like for us, and let them have a chance to be able to speak to it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Appreciate everything you do. Appreciate your thoughtful process of what you're talking about and keeping the doors open and everything going as you need and still be able to get the improvements you need. So appreciate that.
Thank you.
Scott?
Okay, let's go on tax relief.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We have the report on all tax relief for last year, but if we can first look at a settlement that's come to you for this year. It's an interesting case. If you turn to page, I put the page numbers like there's the application, and then here's page 1. I put it in red there at the bottom for you. Page 1 is his letter. And then page 3 is the settlement calculation that I helped him with once he explained the situation. So he had purchased the home August of 17. Somehow the county never changed the mailing address to the Somerset address and left it as the previous owner's Hawaii address. So that then would be the basis for the relief that he's requesting. So that, he didn't notice that because the bank was making the payments until it was paid off. In the meanwhile, since it had a Hawaii address and it was, the situs was in Logan, there was a change of law. The assessor sent a notice to declare primary residence to Hawaii, of course, because that's where we'd been mailing everything. So we got a default judgment, which upped it to a secondary residence. So he was being taxed at 100%. So part of his relief, if you look at page 3, the red 3, in that's the very center, that's an adjusted value. I left that in red because that would be 55% would be the taxable value if we had been sending the mailings to him, and that never would have happened. So when he paid off the house in 2021, the delinquent taxes started adding up, and we know how good our collector is at finding people. So McAllister found him and got everything corrected, but then we have this little mess to sort out. So if you'll take that under consideration, I've put in 2 of those state forms that are the PT 34. You'll see that one's filled out with his proposal. The second one is left blank in case you grant him less than that in relief.
Any questions?
So the total relief the total settlement is going to be $1,118. Is that the one? Am I looking at the right page?
That would make him whole as if we had been mailing to him and he would never have been
delinquent.
Yes, he would never, well, the delinquency really doesn't even weigh in. That's a very small part of this. The big part is being made secondary and then never having it come to him, which was I recommend going with his proposal because the county should have changed that address when he bought the home.
We don't want to penalize somebody for a mistake we made.
Right.
That's exactly how I feel, Carl.
So basically, the abated amount was the 35.91 and 28 cents, right?
Correct.
So, any comments
I'll move to approve the abatement.
of 35.91 and 28?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded that we support the abatement of the $3,591.28 for this property. Is there any discussion?
How did he learn about all of this?
So when the house was paid off in 2021, the McAllister started chasing the delinquency. And he has various spy programs that he uses to discover people so that we, so he can collect and also so that we never have to sell their house at a tax sale. And he does a fabulous job at that. So it was McAllister that found this guy. And then the guy was, of course, raging mad that we'd been sending it to Hawaii. But this will bring him.
Okay. The only other question I have is, in that process, when we go back, do we know how we missed it? Because that would have been,
I
it
know.
would have been in the recording process, right?
Correct.
And somehow, I just wondered, it
that would
could,
have been-
it's probably human error.
That would have been 3 recorders ago.
Oh.
Who'd been here 45 years, and who knows how, I mean, I looked back at that history.
It could have been human error that long ago, and we just don't know. Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, yeah.
So we just approved the abatement, he's gonna pay $35.91, or he's gonna pay $11.18?
No, abated is the deferral.
Abatement,
Yeah,
abatement is a
so-
deferral.
It's a
Yeah,
deferral.
and you'll note that in 2 of those years, there was an overpayment, which really brought the
Amount abated.
balance
Oh,
down
That's what's
if
going
we
on.
grant that as a primary residence for all 4 years.
Okay, thank you, the terminology was not.
Any other
familiar.
questions, comments? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, so I know which one to sign now.
The top one that's filled out, right? Perfect. And so moving on to the tax relief report for 2023. And your first page is going to be a summary of all of the relief besides personal property and back tax adjustments, which are at the very back of the report. And those are when the back tax adjustment report is when McAllister gets a postmarked payment. So it was mailed before the end of the month, but the automatic system assigned penalty and interest. So that's what that very last report is. You'll note on the first page for total tax relief, this year I added a reconciliation because we have some bankers on here and I'm like, they're gonna look at the 945 and they'll be like, well, that doesn't add up. And so I just added that little reconciliation because tax relief is not mutually exclusive. So we have veteran that can also get a blind. We have a circuit breaker that can also get a blind. We have a veteran, 2 veterans that actually also get a circuit breaker. So that little explanation. And then if we can end with the,
Excuse me,
you're fine.
so the actual parcels are the 945?
The actual parcels, that's why I changed that yet, so it said total parcels.
I don't know if you have it off the top of your head. How many parcels do we tax in the county total?
65? 51. But a lot of them are non-taxable. So maybe that's where. That is the taxable number. What I'm saying is probably total parcels.
1,000?
5,100.
5,100.
No, 51,000.
1,000.
And the total parcels, which would be more around 65, include non-taxables and exempts and that we don't collect any tax on. So then if the second report, which is close to the end, is on personal property, which are mobile homes, circuit breakers, and veterans. And then we have, we had one case that was for a home trailer, and I'm gonna let Brett speak to this because he came today and he has an additional one that he'd like to present to you for approval. So, Brett, the one that's on my report is $142.90.
Yes, there's one that's $142.90 that's on your list,
I'm gonna
and then
let
there was another one that I'm asking to be added to the list today. The $142.90, in both of these cases, these are old mobile homes that really, in fact, are at the very end of their useful life. And one,
Excuse me, I'm sorry, what page are we looking at?
good question.
Pages. which page
Yeah.
are we
Yeah.
supposed to be on?
So it's gonna be, it's gonna be 4 pages from the back
Okay.
of your document. It's gonna be the fastest way to find that.
Is it the bottom one that we're talking, the $142?
Exemptions, abatements?
Yeah.
$142.90.
Yeah, I know this seems minimal, but I just wanted to explain,
Yeah, personal property, mobile home exemptions, abatements, do you have it?
Okay, found it, yes.
If you will add the.
so I need to add one more to that list that's not on the list of $304.60 that was in fact, well, let me speak to the first one, which was $142.90 that is on, we received, the tax was in fact twice that amount, $285.80, but the mobile home park decided to chip in, and because they wanted the trailer gone out of their park, so they chipped in on that. So they did pay half that, so we're asking for the other half. The other one was in fact gone, that I'm asking for it to be added for the $304.60. It was gone in late 2022, or in some part of 2022. We did not know that it was gone. It was in fact collapsed. It collapsed in a snowstorm. So these are derelict mobile homes.
Can you state the?
Yes, the account number on that one is HT-03-1155.
Owner?
Deirdre Case.
Can we say
Did you
that?
say 30460?
Yes.
Okay.
Can we make that as an amendment to the?
I'll accept the motion to amend
So
that
moved.
document.
So moved.
Second.
Moving second, we amend the document as stated. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
Can I ask a question though?
yeah, now it's open for
The veteran
discussion.
exemptions, obviously all veterans are not exempt from paying property taxes. Can you explain that a little bit, how
So
that?
this is gonna be just, we have 2 forms of veterans, and what you see on, like, if you look at your first page, you'll see veterans. These have to be disabled in the line of service, and they have to provide us with the VA letter that states their percentage of disability.
Okay.
You can't just be a veteran, or you can't be disabled after you were a veteran. And then we also have one that's for active vets, that they're eligible for their full tax to be abated the year after they complete their 200 days out of state. Is that,
Thank you.
are we good?
What's circuit breaker?
Okay, so circuit breaker is the nickname for the homeowner's abatement, which is, it's like throwing 2 circuits, and if you get a yes on both, then you get the abatement. That would be 66 and older, and then meeting that income requirement that's under this year, I think it was 38,749.
38,960.
Maybe next year's 40,
Both those
479.
factors,
Yep.
over certain age as well as under the income.
Under the income.
Thank you.
Drill down with me on veterans and being exempt. Veteran who's Vietnam vet comes back, he's not disabled, but as time goes on, Agent Orange wreaks havoc, he becomes
We see
disabled.
that, or we see them develop types of cancer.
Right, so
Yes.
what do we do in those instances?
They get it, because they'll come and they'll have a letter from the VA.
VA,
I mean, like if
VA
somebody,
does the approval on that stuff and
VA has the
diagnosis.
approval
I'm
in
just
it.
going because it seemed like she says it
Yes.
at termination of service if they discharged or were disabled, but that changes
But
as
they,
their
but
life.
so they got hit with Agent Orange when they were in service.
Right.
Whereas if they were to come out and get in a car wreck and get in a wheelchair, then they wouldn't.
Okay, that helps me.
Good questions. Others?
I'll just comment. We're not doing too badly. That looked like a lot, 945 abatements or concessions on property tax. That's only 1.85% of our total.
Okay.
You've got your calculator handy tonight, don't
I
you?
know, you love Carl. Like doing the
Good job, Carl.
30 cents an acre and.
Put it in proper perspective.
And one other note on that, the circuit breaker is,
Say to his
we
wife,
do
"You've
get
been
that money
talking
back from the
38.3%
state.
of the time."
And we have to, but we have to match it with that 20%. Those go together, so, but yeah, but McAllister applies to the state, so we got that 139,000 back.
Oh, I have one more question, Diana. What about the properties that are tax exempt, like the low-income housing apartment complexes? Are they in this report, or are they?
They are not
They are
in
not.
this-
That's totally separate. This
They
is
are,
just
so Brett handles a lot of the low income, and there was a program so that they are taxed at a lower value, right? Then we have had a lot of them coming to us under the religious, charitable, educational. Their deadline's March 1st, so you're gonna start seeing them at the next meeting. We'll start running them through, so, and it's interesting on some of those low-income housing, you know, we ask on a charitable for their gift to the community, but if they're getting that Section 8 money back, do we ask for something additional? Because I'm dealing with one right now, and I'm looking at the financials, and I'm like, where's this 260,000 on your financials? And he's like, well, that's Section 8 money. It gets, and I know, Carl, you've asked this question in years gone by. So do I ask for more to prove the gift to our local community if they're getting reimbursed for that, you know, the sliding scale difference?
Is there a specific policy that outlines, like you're following these stipulations that we can look at and say, you know, is it some of it ambiguous, it's just up to us to decide, or is it specifically laid out that we can look
Well,
at?
so the gift to the community for the charitable, they just have to prove that their gift to the local community is equal to or exceeds their tax liability.
Okay.
So it's pretty broad, but it
Yeah.
seems like if they're getting that money back from Section 8, they're not really out.
I think we should dig deeper on those, because those who are exempt, we make them come in and prove and report to us on that.
And I'll do a deep review of the law before I bring them to you, because I know that there was a change on some of that low income that we were digging into, weren't we, Sandy? So, more in 2 weeks, and thanks for your time, folks.
Great question. We've made that amendment. We probably ought to accept today's, we all accept the motion for to accept the tax relief report for 2/13 of 2024.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much, Diana. Appreciate it.
Thanks to both of you. That's a big report.
Yes,
Yes.
very good. Let's jump into, down there under initial, Resolution 2024-01, the opening of the 2024 county budget. Is there any questions, additions, deletions, what you would like to do with that?
Did we come to terms on the travel budget for the executive at $7,800?
Well, I'm in favor of leaving it like we had it, to be honest with you. It's, I think we're fine with where we're at, personally, so. I think that, you know, we've, all the departments have cut, they've cut their, they've cut a lot of those issues, and I think that's what we need to stick with, personally. But anyway, what's your point of view? You guys share it and present a motion, so.
Do I need to make that amendment? The motion to amend the cell phone stipend, the communications budget?
We already.
Did I already do that?
We already did
Okay,
that.
I wasn't sure procedure-wise.
Yep, that would be as amended, and that's adding that other exempt employee, $85 per month, so. Good ones. Others? Everyone agree with everything else? Any questions? And finance, executive, clerks? Elections.
Well, based on the report we saw in our workshop, I'm glad we're seeing something on the elections. I hope that helps that group, so I'm good with that.
I appreciate the Appropriations Committee. Let's work through all of these, and go through these.
I will say Sandy did 90% of the lift there, so thanks to her.
We appreciate that, but I think I think we have a wonderful process.
Yeah.
Where the Appropriations Budget Committee they look through this, they vet a lot of this stuff in hopes that when we look at it and that things are presented to us, that we will then also have basically a motion from that committee that we accept that the findings of that committee and move on. So anyway, I appreciate what you guys have done there. So I'll unless it's initial, so we can wait till next time, but it's up to you.
I'm fine to make a motion to approve as is presented.
You have to suspend the rules. I think.
Suspend the rules.
And we'll suspend them for this time and move on, so.
Is there a second?
Suspend the rules.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded that we suspend the rules, pass resolution 2024-01 with the amendment on the communications section that we have already approved. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, let's go to resolution 2024-02 on the Bear River Mental Health. Let's go to that. Micah, would you share input on that? And
Okay, Resolution 2024-02 establishes a policy by which the county council will select Cache County's representative on the Bear River Mental Health Board of Trustees. Here I have the bylaws to Bear River Mental Health. It is a 501c3 that contracts with Cache County to provide mental health services for individuals throughout the county. And
Cache County and Rich and Box Elder.
right, Cache County, Rich, and Box Elder counties. So right here on Article 4, subsection 2, we see that up to 3 members of the Board of Directors, Board of Trustees, may be appointed by the local mental health authorities. Under state code, the Cache County Council is the mental health authority for Cache County. So this resolution simply states that that will be done by the county council by a motion of a council member, the majority vote of the council, and that may be reevaluated at the beginning of each calendar year, just when the county council does its appointments to all boards and committees. This one's a little different because it's a private entity. It's not actually a county board or committee, but we're throwing it in with the rest of them nonetheless. So,
any questions on that?
Yeah, why is mine Buse, Goodlander, back name highlighted red? What's the deal? Erickson is in, I find it.
I guess I have a common name, and I guess Goodlander's not as common.
think it's
It's
misspelled.
spell check. You guys are misspelled. Any discussion? I'd entertain a motion, or we can go till later. I'll entertain whatever you guys would like to share
We
there.
have to waive the rules on
Yeah, it would.
I propose we waive the rules and approve resolution 2024-02.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded that we suspend/waive the rules for resolution 2024-02. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. Right, then following that, I would entertain a motion to appoint from the council Who would represent the council at the Bear River Mental Health Board?
I move that we appoint Nolan Gunnell to the Bear River Mental Health Board of Trustees.
Is there a second?
Second that.
Moved and seconded that we accept the nomination of Nolan Gunnell for this. Is there any discussion? Since Nolan didn't say anything.
I was just going to say I qualify because of the mental, but I was going to say shut up, so.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. Ordinance 2024-02, the districts, who's handling?
I was, but I was told that there would be no discussion.
Well, we'd like to hear from you. No, anyway, any questions that you'd have from what was presented to us? There shouldn't be much, but
Is this where it was in like the cemetery?
yeah, we gotta bring the dead into vote. And it went up the canyon. There's a little bit, there's just little bits that clears some things up. Is there any other items that we need to discuss about that?
No, I don't anyway.
Any questions?
So nothing's changed from the mapping that we saw?
Nothing has changed from the mapping that you saw.
Can't we make it harder for her?
No, we don't want her to go anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, define uninhabited.
I've learned a lot on the mapping, and so thank you for that. Yes.
Okay.
What if we didn't do this? Would there really be any like repercussions?
They just have cemeteries in their own voting district. It's kind of weird.
Well, some of
I'd like
them,
to see
some of
them
them
come out
don't
and
have a
vote, so we'll
district.
see. I'd like to see them come out and vote, so we'll see.
And some of them may have.
Well, no, there are some homes, but I noticed there was one home that when we go up the canyon that has had year-round residents, but has not lately.
Right. We don't have any, we checked, there are no registered voters in any of those homes, but as that development goes forward, is there the possibility for year-round residency, and will there be voters in that? That's something we probably should address before it happens and we're missing people.
Yeah, good idea.
I would agree. I mean, it's sensible.
I think it cleans it up, just in
This means
case.
the whole county's covered.
Yeah.
In the district, or not covered, but is included.
Okay, I'll waive the
See?
rules and move that we pass ordinance 2024-02.
Second it.
Move second, that we suspend and waive the rules for ordinance 2024-02, an ordinance updating council districts to include certain uninhabited precincts. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Any additions to UAC building conference? Barbara, Sandy's on there.
I'm gonna need to take my name off the Building Utah
Well, I don't want to go
conference.
by myself. I have a question. Dirk, are your executives going to that?
That's a good question.
Because
I
that's
don't-
the roads. Like, we all went last year. Some of us went last year. And it was really interesting.
It's-
I learned some things, but it's probably not the best use of our bandwidth. Or if we need council representative there, I could go, but I'd hate to be there by myself, me and Matt Phillips. You know what I mean?
Say, we want Matt there, right?
Yes, Matt needs to be there, and I'm sure some of his staff will be there,
That's
but
true.
what?
We were
Matt was-
represented by staff, is what I was saying, Matt
Yeah.
and I can't remember.
I'm going to
so-
be out of town is the reason I'm not gonna be there.
Okay, so I would, unless someone else wants to go, I kind of don't want to spend those 2 days by myself. And, I don't know, unless you guys tell me that I have the ability to go, if you tell me you think it's wise that you need
I
the,
didn't feel like it was something that really we needed
Yeah.
to go as a council.
it's very informational.
Informational, but I don't feel like there was
It's-
anything I could bring back to the
there's
council
a-
as action items.
Felt like it was
or
really
anything.
good as once in your term, at least, but it doesn't, it's not the same impact as a.
There are a lot of,
Another
UAC
one
meeting.
that
there
month
are a
to
lot of
take you away
boots on
from
the
home.
ground kind of vendors, everything,
Yeah.
people that different kind of specific technology and everything that they're using, materials. I mean, it's really quite relevant to basically,
Matt's
yeah.
department,
and infrastructure, and maybe we could
Roads
even
and-
ask Matt Phillips or the executive to come and give us a report afterwards, and if there's anything that we need to be aware of, but if you haven't signed us up for that yet, have you, Micah?
Okay.
Let's save the money on that one, and,
Okay.
That's how I feel. about
UAC, any changes to the UAC Management Conference?
that. I would like to go to that one.
Yeah, you can put me as official.
And I'm going for sure on that.
Catherine, did you say yes?
Riding Sandy and Barbara.
It's usually the 2 full days, or is it more like a day and a half for travel?
It's usually just 2 days.
Yeah, it's usually just 2 days.
Yeah, it's been 2 days in the past.
Also, I have St. George on here. I'm not sure it's in St. George.
Yeah,
I don't
thinking
think
it's in,
One of them's in Richfield and the other one is in.
I thought this was in Utah County.
Yeah.
Okay, I think this one's in Irvine.
yeah.
Building Utah is in
That's
Richfield.
That
Yeah,
is
Rich-
better.
Yeah.
Right.
So this one's in, they don't send out, the agendas very early.
Let me look at
They like cut it to the end.
Available, like,
I didn't,
last week.
not sure where the UAC
So if it's 2
Management.
days, I might only need a hotel for one night.
Okay. Well, we'll move on. Those that want to, if you find more details than that, we've got a little bit of time, but let's keep abreast of that. We'll let Micah know, and it'll come up again in a couple weeks here. Council member reports, we'll quickly do those before we go into executive session. Mark?
Just, there's a handful of us will probably reference it, but we had the meeting of the, just forgot the phrase, OMP yesterday. And so that really the only committee that I've been able to participate on since the last meeting. I unfortunately missed the Fair Board meeting earlier today due to a work meeting. But that's all for me to report. I'll let someone else share their good news. Looking at Barbara.
Nolan?
I don't have anything right now.
Catherine?
Nothing this time.
Okay.
With the OMP committee, they nominated me to be the chair, so I am the chair of that committee. And I feel like we had a pretty good discussion yesterday on some things, and we're looking forward to Micah arranging some things on the general ledger with the small 3 numbers at the end. So yeah, I think that's really going to help us a lot. As far as my own personal goal, I trained with Micah on Cassell a couple weeks ago, so he was very helpful on that. So I'm looking forward to delving more into that too. And as far as legislative things, we did not have a call on the Human Social Services today, so
Were
things
they
are moving
rescheduled?
on.
None of those were,
I haven't seen that they rescheduled. They canceled
oh, I
because of
have
NACO.
one that got rescheduled, so.
Oh, okay. I expect to have one next week, but there wasn't any this week.
Excellent. Go ahead, Sandy.
Had a good meeting this morning at the Fairgrounds Advisory Board. They talked about some of the RAPS projects that they want to bring before us. And so that was really good. Appropriations, we had our first meeting. I thought it went really well. I'm excited to pull together some of those things and work with the, pass on some recommendations to the OMP committee. We were able to go to Salt Lake last week, almost every day.
Yeah, I was going to say every
We had
day,
some good
didn't you?
meetings with our legislators, and we got to testify at a committee, and I just think it was really good to be a part of the process. Whether that turns out the way we wanted it to, I think we did all we could, and I was really happy that we had that opportunity to do that. And I just want to put in another plug for the senior center. We need a new senior center. So wherever I can beg money, borrow, or steal money, we're going to try and get a new senior center.
Carl?
Really nothing other than what we brought up about the OMP committee. Excited to have Barbara be our chair.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. And the only report that I have is that, yes, our legislative action, everything that we're doing, I think it's quite active, and we're all busy. I think it's working really good. I was unable to be to the fairgrounds meeting today. We had a mudslide up that has affected the West Cache Canal, and we were touring that up there. I've got some video of it. It's a whole hillside that you wouldn't think would slide. Came down 600 to 800 feet wide and 30+ feet deep at the canal point. And yeah, it's a crazy thing, and it's really eerie when you're going around and you're walking around and it's still moving. But you're walking around and then you're right next to it and you're seeing all these cracks, and at any second, maybe that could all go. You go, I think we ought to get out of here. Let the drone do the business. But it's really interesting, but I've also been working with Greg Butters with UDAP and on how we're going to have to maybe go forward to get some declaration if we can, because the slide itself that affects 12,000, almost 13,000 shares of the West Cache Canal, which is a huge number of acreage of the 15,000 total, which there is, the slide happened in the Idaho side, but how it affects, it's really gonna put a bind to get that thing out of it. They said 8 to 9.5 million cubic yards of mountain came down. Yeah, it's ugly, but anyway, and all those details are coming out as analysis are being done, and we just need some details before some things can be done and to help them get that thing cleaned out, so.
So you're saying there's free filters?
As a matter of fact, while we were there, they looked at the whole mountain all the way back to Riverdale, saying, we'd love to sell you all the dirt. Free fill, they would open the gates, and you can come and get all you want. So, no, it's amazing thing back there, so, anyway, so we'll go ahead and I'll entertain a motion to go into exec.
Chair, can I
Yes.
say one thing I forgot? I think we need to start looking at the ARPA funds. We set aside some for, I think it was 400,000 as a reserve. We need to start looking at things to commit that so that we get this committed. So please be thinking about things. Alma talked to me. I asked him if he could give us a kind of a priority of those who are using it and could use more. That would be a good place to start for that.
And if bare minimum, we have a discussion somewhere, even the next meeting, to get out, somehow utilize that last money, however we're going to do that, get a process set together that people know.
I know Matt Phillips is working on some in some areas, and that's a good place to use it too, because that's roads, which benefits.
Is that on the agenda for the next executive's budget committee meeting?
That would be great to talk about it the next
If not, it
appropriation.
should be,
Something we need to look at.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to the executive session for the strategy session to discuss pending or reasonably imminent litigation.
So moved.
Is there a second? Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?